Coming up on the Social Hour, we're talking to Harley Finkelstein, the CPO of Shopify, on selling your wares on your very own site and looking good while doing it. Facebook is public, and they're getting more karma. And Twitter blessings for your pets. All that and more next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is the Social Hour with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, episode 61, recorded Monday, May 21st, 2012. This episode of the Social Hour is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com and use the offer code SOCIALHOUR5. And they now offer free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/social hour. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Social Hour at TWiT World Headquarters in Petaluma, California. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I forgot where I was for a second.
You had to think about that. I
know. It's like, where am I? It is a holiday, I should say, in Canada. So that could be part of the reason I'm forgetting. Nonetheless, excited to do the show, and we have a great one today.
Yeah, we do. For anybody who's not familiar with what holiday it might be in Canada, why are you working today, and what's the big holiday?
Well, it is Victoria Day weekend, so it's our long weekend in the spring. Many people also call it May 24 weekend because it falls around May 24th. And also there's a bit of a pun with May 24 in terms of a 2-4 beer, very Canadian, of course. So a big weekend for a lot of people to open up their cottages. And I know in the U.S. you guys have a long weekend coming up next week. So we have a bit of a lead on you this time, Sarah. I don't know what that means, but we're lucky up here.
2-4 weekend. I wish I knew what that meant, but if it involves beer, I'm already liking it. Sounds like that kind of thing.
I'm sure there's a much more official reason for this holiday that you can all find on Wikipedia somewhere online, but I'm giving you more of the cultural explanation as far as what people are doing.
Sounds good. All right, Amber, let's get right into it. We have a great guest today. Harley Finkelstein joins us. He's the CPO of Shopify. Without further ado, let's welcome him. Hi, Harley.
Hey, guys. Nice to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you, too. For anybody who's not familiar with a CPO, we've heard CEO, COO, CTO, Chief Product Officer, correct?
Actually, no. So CPO, in my case, is actually Chief Platform Officer. As you know, Shopify is a platform, and most of the groups that I oversee here are the business groups. I actually started as a Shopify customer, as one of Shopify's first customers back in 2006. And joined the company in 2010 to help out with their business group. And so most of my teams are the business teams of Shopify, but that also includes our apps and themes teams as well, which build things on top of our platform.
Talk a little bit about what Shopify does. You know, we've been familiar with it on the show and in other TWiT shows as well, but for people who have never heard of it.
Sure. So Shopify is an e-commerce platform. We allow anyone with a product or even a service to sell it online very easily. And Shopify grew out of our own frustration. In 2005, we tried to build our own snowboard shop called Snow Devil and realized that the software that was available at the time just really wasn't compelling. It was either very expensive to build an online store using an enterprise partner like GSI Commerce, which would charge you hundreds of thousands of dollars, or you had kind of Yahoo stores or eBay. There really wasn't anything in the middle that had the robustness of the platform we were looking for. So we built Shopify as our own solution for frustration, and about a year later realized that snowboards were a good idea, but selling software was a great idea. And today we have more than 25,000 customers in more than 88 countries. And this year, they'll sell more than $500 million in product using Shopify. So really excited where the company is at, and really excited about the industry in general.
So let's say that I spend a lot of time making scarves. Like I'm an expert knitter, and I wanted an area of my website where maybe I have pictures of these to be able to sell them. This is something that Shopify could help me with. How is this different than, let's say, an Etsy or another place that people are familiar with as individuals can use as stores?
Yeah, great question. In fact, many of our customers start on Etsy and then graduate off. Etsy is a really great way initially to sell one particular product, but Etsy really doesn't allow for much scalability. You eventually do graduate off of the Etsy platform. The nice part about Shopify is you can start here and you can kind of stay here. It has all the tools you need to get started, but it also has the additional requirements you'll need to scale. And so most of our stores, if not all of them, would self-identify as SMBs, small businesses. But we have a lot of large brands like Encyclopedia Britannica and GE and some rock bands like the Foo Fighters and the Beastie Boys that also sell on Shopify. So again, you can start on Shopify, but you can also scale. And the other piece of that is Shopify. It's your own shop. It's whatever you want to call it. It doesn't live on someone else's platform, like would be the case in something like eBay or Etsy. So it is your own shop with your own identity, and it allows you to scale really nicely. So those are our main value props. I guess the third one, besides ease of use and scalability, is probably being the design of it. You're seeing here a bunch of example stores, and you can see all of them look amazing. They don't look templated by any means. They have unique designs in many cases that do reflect perhaps a brick and mortar store type design. So a lot of brick and click retailers on here as well. But the idea is if you know how to use email and you have 15 minutes, you should be able to build your own store on Shopify, and it should look really, really great.
What is the pricing structure like? So let's say you are a small business, maybe you're a sole entrepreneur and you want to start using Shopify. How do you charge for the service?
Another good question. So Shopify starts at $29 per month with a 2% transaction fee. And as you sort of grow your company and your online business, that goes up to $179 per month with no transaction fee. So, once a brand starts to do a couple $1,000s a month in GMV, gross merchandise sales, that's usually when they evaluate whether or not they should be at a higher price plan with no transaction fee whatsoever.
Now, Harley, you said that before you joined Shopify, you used the service, correct?
That's right, yeah.
And what were you selling?
So when I was a first-year law student, I had to make some extra money and realized that working a part-time job at a cafe wasn't going to pay the bills properly. So in law school, I built a company called Smoofer, which was a licensed T-shirt online store. And I used Shopify again. I was one of their first customers. And we sold Batman and Rolling Stones and AC/DC. We sold some really great licensed apparel. And what we did was we really targeted rural areas in Canada in particular, places where you couldn't go to the shopping mall and buy the new Batman, the Dark Knight T-shirt because you didn't have a retailer nearby. And we really targeted communities like that and ended up doing quite well. And so I was very familiar with Shopify from its very early days. And that's the reason why I decided to come join the company just over 2 years ago.
Now, one thing we really wanted to talk about with you today that we're all excited about is how the social media world has had an impact on the online shopping experience. So can you talk a little bit about how Shopify has kind of changed and altered its path to take this into account?
Totally. So social commerce, as we call it here, is certainly something that people are talking about and something that is on everyone's mind. I guess about a year and a half ago, you started seeing signs of major brands that tried, some successfully, some not so successfully, to build their online stores right on top of Facebook. And so you had companies like Bluefly, the NBA. I think you even had Snoop Dogg selling headphones using Facebook. And for a while, it became everyone sort of assumed that the transition would be into social commerce would be that the transaction itself might actually happen on Facebook. And I guess with 18 months of hindsight now, we've seen that actually that hasn't happened exactly the way people anticipated it. In fact, what ended up happening was people end up using Facebook as a great referral tool to get people to come to their online store. But the actual transaction seems to still be happening on the online store, in the shopping cart, not on Facebook. Nonetheless, the big aha moment, I think, from social commerce came out that these social networking sites, particularly Facebook, Twitter, now Pinterest, and even LinkedIn to a much lesser degree, is a phenomenal tool to drive traffic to your online store. And that's been fantastic, I think, for merchants.
Now, according to a recent article on Fast Company, which was mostly about Pinterest, but the fact that Pinterest does drive sales through click-throughs just because it has such a big user base. It's now the third biggest referral source to your partner sites at Shopify after Facebook and Twitter. That's amazing.
Yeah, that is fairly, some of this information is fairly mind-blowing because up until recently, no one even understood, the monetization or the actual, the benefit of using Pinterest as a social network or as a new social network. And so what Shopify did last week was we basically looked at the traffic of our 25,000 plus stores and figured out whether or not Pinterest was playing a large role in this. And some of the data I'm going to share with you right now because even if you want to read the infographic, it's on Shopify's blog or on Fast Company. But I did pull out some of those data points that I thought were really interesting. If it's okay, I'd like to share some of those.
Sure.
Great.
Okay, so one of the biggest ones that I thought was really interesting is that when you're pinning a particular item, particularly a good, and you actually have the price pin with on the item, you're 30 times more. Sorry, the increase is 35% more of getting likes and repins. So actually, people are going on Pinterest and looking for items that do have a real price point. And for more cases than not, it's because that means that's an indication that they can actually purchase this item through someone's online store. So a 35% increase if you actually have a price listed on your pin. I thought that was pretty interesting. The other thing that we noticed was in terms of referral traffic, right now Pinterest is basically on par with Twitter. So 3.6% of total referral traffic coming from Pinterest to Shopify stores so Pinterest does produce that type of traffic. Again, that is pretty mind-blowing considering Twitter's been around for a lot longer and now the Pinterest traffic is equal to Twitter. So I thought that was fairly compelling as well as a data point. The next thing that we thought was really, really interesting, and that's if you just go a little bit further on the infographic, you'll see that, is there's approximately a 10% right there, a 10% higher conversion rate when referrals come from Pinterest as opposed to elsewhere. So again, 10% more likely to convert browsers into shoppers using Pinterest. We thought that was quite unbelievable.
Do you think that's because Pinterest is Pinterest is more focused than, say, a Facebook. Facebook might have links to things that you can buy, but it also has just general updates from people or pictures of, their newest photo album that doesn't have anything to do with buying anything. That Pinterest is more, I'm browsing right now because if I see this lamp, I hope that I can click through and buy the lamp.
Yeah, so absolutely. The centerpiece or the common denominator on something like Facebook is really personal connections. However, on Pinterest, the centerpiece or I guess the lowest common denominator that everyone is going there for is actually a product. It's to see something. Now, again, people are using Pinterest differently now. Now people are pinning articles and stuff. But for the most part, it's things like apparel and electronics. And so, yeah, I think that's the reason. I think that rather than it being about, purchasing something and also being about personal relationships and also about being pictures or videos or news stories, Pinterest revolves around particular products that you get to sort of ID and pin. And so I think that has a lot to do with it.
I think it's also interesting when you go a little further down in the infographic and talk about Pinterest users spending a lot of money, and in this one case, potentially spending almost twice as much as the average Facebook user, up to $80 on the average order. I guess, again, to Sarah's point, maybe this is because it is a specific community that's looking for cool stuff. But I wonder, I guess this kind of explains why there is so much interest and so much value put into the Pinterest community because of its potential, which maybe it's not realizing right now, but do you see that happening in the months, or would it take years in the future to actually see that transition being even more cemented?
Well, here's a great example of that. In the last 6 months, from September 2011 till April 2012, so approximately 6 months or so, we know for sure that we had, in September 2011, that 75 orders came to our stores directly from pins. We know for certain that in April 2012, more than 300 came from pins into actual sales. Now, again, there might be a lot more of those purchases that do stem initially from Pinterest, but we can substantiate that we went from 75 to 320 in less than 6 months. So I think the next couple of months are going to be really, really interesting. In terms of that first first point that you made, Amber, which is about the ticket price being double from Pinterest than it is from Facebook. Again, I think that's incredible. Going from $40 ticket price to an $80 ticket price is fairly substantial. And again, I think it is because in many cases, people go on Pinterest to look at products. People go on Facebook to look at products, but do a lot of other things as well. And if you look at people's titles of people's boards on Pinterest, one of the things you'll see, like for me personally, I have, things to buy for my home, things to buy for my office. I'm very precise and particular about what I want to do on Pinterest. I'm looking for things to buy. I think that also has a huge plays a huge role in why you're seeing this double per ticket price from Facebook onto Pinterest.
So I guess in a perfect world, I would, first of all, have cool stuff to sell. I would make myself, I would incorporate Shopify into my website to make it sort of beautiful, seamless experience so that Amber could buy my beautiful scarves that I'm so good at making. And then if I'm really smart, I figure out a way to get the word out via Pinterest to drive a lot more traffic to my website and my scarves, and I end up being a billionaire.
That's it. That is exactly it. Not to do anything more. You've hit the nail on the head. Don't do anything else. Just do that. In all honesty, Pinterest is an amazing way to convert browsers into shoppers and generally drive traffic to your online store. But keep in mind, Pinterest is still the only, it's substantial, but it still is only number 3 in the social media, in the social networking grand scheme of things. You still have Facebook number 1 and Twitter number 2, and then LinkedIn as the 4th one. So again, I don't think it's, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but I don't think if you are an online merchant right now, or you're a retailer in general, even if you don't have an online store, as hard as that is to believe that someone doesn't, but if you don't have an online store, Pinterest is a super valuable way to drive traffic to your site. I'll tell you one other thing that I read recently, and I really tried to see if this was substantiated through Facebook, and I didn't find that. But I heard a quote that if a friend of yours on Facebook recommends a product, you are 4 times as likely to buy that product. If a friend of yours actually buys that product and tells you about it on Facebook, you are 10 times as likely to buy it. Now, again, I haven't been able to substantiate these figures. I just heard it at a conference. But if those numbers are right, and you can use Facebook in a very compelling way, and you're able to use Twitter and Pinterest as well, these are now new drivers of traffic to your online store. And again, these are great catalysts to convert browsers into shoppers. So I think you need to sort of use all of these. But definitely social commerce is very interesting. I don't think we've even seen, I don't think we've scratched the surface just yet. There's a lot of interesting things happening between commerce, Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. But all that to be said, I think it's a very exciting time right now to be an online merchant because there's these great new technologies you can use.
All right. So last question from me, and I may be asking you to reveal some insider information, but you've inspired me, and I think Sarah feels the same way, that perhaps we would love to start some type of online store. I don't know about Sarah, but I actually can't truly knit anything. So out of curiosity, what type of products sell the most on Shopify, if you can share that information, just to get us started, Harley, to get into that $1 billion revenue area?
So I actually know I'm happy to give away some of that secret sauce. So the 2 largest categories on Shopify product-wise is apparel and electronics. So I think apparel and electronics are both great items to sell. The difference, obviously, is for the most part, the barrier to entry into going ahead and building an electronic, something that you need to sell online, is pretty high. The barrier is, of course, being reduced with things like 3D printers and Kickstarter to raise money for a prototype. But for the most part, there is a barrier to entry. In apparel, if you're a great designer or you're a creative person, you have an idea for a great t-shirt, it is a little bit easier to go ahead and do that. You have on-demand t-shirt companies now that can print for you without even having to stock inventory. But definitely apparel and electronics are fantastic. I think beyond that, I think if you are creative and you're passionate and you know the right channels to go into and figure out where to advertise and market your products, you can do some cool stuff. We do a contest every year called the Build a Business Contest. And each year, thousands of new businesses are created on Shopify. And the winner of our last contest were 2 engineers who decided that they were sick and tired of burning their mouth on hot coffee and ended up making this little piece of metal that you drop in your coffee. It brings down the temperature to an optimal drinking temperature, and then it maintains it for about 30 minutes. It's called Julies.com. So some of the great success stories on Shopify, you probably wouldn't even think about until you actually hear the story.
Wow, that's awesome.
We have a lot of work to do, Sarah.
We do. Amber, I need to learn to knit, apparently, so that we can, he said apparel, so I guess we got to start making some sweaters and socks and hats.
And if you need any help at all, let me know. I'm happy to help. Shopify is super easy to use, and if we can help you guys in any way, we'd love to.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to hold you to that, so watch out.
Thanks so much, Harley. Harley Finkelstein, the CPO, Chief Platform Officer over at Shopify. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us and tell us a little bit more about Shopify today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Love your show, and pleasure to be on.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day off now.
Thank you.
Your Victorian weekend. Is that right, Amber? Am I saying it right? The 2-4 weekend?
It's close, Sarah. You're getting there. You're almost Canadian.
I know. It's like I'm an honorary Canadian. I'm getting so good at it now. Interesting stuff. It's we showed just a tiny bit of what Shopify has to offer as far as templates go and the different ways that people are using Shopify to make their own stores. But I think one thing is constant is that the stores look really good. And you think to yourself, I saw some of the questions in chat as we were talking to Harley of people saying, do you really need this service? Do I really want to pay somebody to take a piece of all of my revenue for the stuff that I'm selling myself? But it is not easy to be hosting your own store on your website. And if you don't want to do, if you want something that's more personalized, Etsy's might not be the answer for you, because Etsy is amazing and so many vendors have success with Etsy, but it's not so much a personal experience that's attached to your own domain, your own brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the average person, our audience is obviously very smart and very technical. So I think if you compare that, however, to the average audience, that they don't necessarily want to be thinking about the technology or the back end of any type of online store. They want to focus on their product at hand and what they're trying to develop. So I think you're right. It looked great as far as the different stores and the designs and all of that and the social integration and everything. So it did make me excited, though. I was pretty serious, Sarah. I wish I had something to sell, but alas, I do not.
I don't know. It's like I actually don't know how to knit at all. I've never learned, unfortunately, which is sort of why I was joking about it. But it seems like, man, we've got to be able to think of something. What is something that I could sell? I guess if I had some really good slogans, as Harley was explaining, I could work with a third-party t-shirt company and sell a lot of t-shirts. But, you have to have those good ideas. You don't want just some t-shirt shop like everybody else. Because I'm not an artist, so it's not going to be my original artwork on a t-shirt. I got to think of funny slogans. Because that's never been done before. We need more of those ironic t-shirts in our lives.
Ironic hipster t-shirts.
My Shopify store. Quick reminder to everyone who might not be watching us live, we do record the Social Hour live on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We love to have you join us live, if at all possible. But if you can't, don't you worry. Our website is at twit.tv/TSH. That's where all of our show archives live. It's where you can watch videos of all of our past episodes. You can watch our video with co-founder of Get Around, Jessica Scorpio. She was our guest last week. She was really interesting. They're disrupting the social car sharing space. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, you got to go watch episode 60. It was really good. And back down all the way to episode 1. You can email us at thesocialhour@twit.tv. If you have any questions, comments, feedback about anything that we talk about on the show during our interviews or during our news sections, during our Rad or Fad, which is coming up in just a few minutes. But before we go any farther, we definitely want to thank our first sponsor of this episode of The Social Hour, and that is Squarespace. When I was talking about Shopify's amazing templates and different looks and how everything looks professional, I couldn't help but be thinking about Squarespace in the back of my mind, because Squarespace is a fast and easy way to create a website, the kind of website where you might want to incorporate your own store into, and it looks great right out of the gates. Squarespace is not only for professionals who know a little bit about code and know how to design their own website, and they're creating their own headers, and they've got their coordinated colors, the whole thing. They've got the whole thing already set up, to people like me who have no skills in that department at all, but still want to seem professional and like they put a lot of effort into the website that represents them the most. That's where Squarespace comes in. Squarespace is it's an easy-to-use user interface that can really help you put together all sorts of things. Maybe you are a creative writer, you're doing a lot of writing. Maybe you're not doing a lot of writing, but you have a photography business, that sort of thing. So you want a template that shows off some of your photographs really beautifully, that sort of thing. There are iPhone, iPad, Android apps, so you can update your blog on the go. It's very handy. We're not all just sitting in front of our main computer anymore, so it's nice to be able to go in and manage your comments and just kind of check and see what kind of activity has been going on in your site as well. There is a really, really good back end that gives you all sorts of data with who visited your site, where they were referred from. It's very, very important. I mean, that's Shopify's, Harley was just telling us it's very, very important to them that they know, is Pinterest driving all this traffic to us? Well, we got to pay attention to them. Works the same way when it's your own blog, especially if you're trying to get the word out that you've got these great things going on in your blog. I could go on, but definitely check it out for yourself. If you go to squarespace.com and click the examples button, you get a really good sense of who's using Squarespace and all the different websites, different looks, different feels that you have the option of choosing if you want to be a customer. And of course, we would never talk about Squarespace without giving you a little something extra. If you go to squarespace.com and click the Try It Free button, you don't need a credit card or anything like that. You can just give the website a go. Put together a template. It's as easy as pie. Check it out for a couple of weeks. And then if you decide that you want to start an account with Squarespace.com, we will give you 10% off of your first purchase on new accounts. Don't forget they have free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions as well. So they give you all sorts of bells and whistles. For that 10% off, use the offer code SOCIALHOUR5. That's Social Hour and the number 5, all one word, at squarespace.com. And we thank them so much for sponsoring this episode of the Social Hour. Amber, there's a little website last week. You may have heard of it. Facebook. It's yearbook or something like that. It's for college kids, I guess. They went public and no one noticed. It's a real shame.
No one noticed. I didn't hear anything about that at all, actually, Sarah. So I'm glad that you brought it up, just so I can get up to speed.
Yeah. Well, of course, we're kidding. The Facebook IPO happened on Friday, as expected. I say this, it's sort of like reluctantly bringing it up again, even though this only happened a few days ago, just because there was so much hype. There was so much talk. Everybody was all of a sudden a stock expert leading up to this that I really feel like the Facebook IPO subject has been done to death. And it's still going. I mean, 3 days later, now people are saying, well, it's a bust. We're in a bubble, and the bubble's bursting because the Facebook stock price isn't higher. And I think it's easy to get it's easy to sort of get away from the whole point of a company going public because people think, well, if the stock doesn't rise exponentially right away, then that means it's not worth it. And that's not really why people should be buying Facebook stock anyway. The idea is that it's gone public so you can get a piece of the company because it's a long-term investment, not sort of a short-term, look, I'm a Facebook millionaire type of a thing. But sometimes reality gets a little bit skewed, especially in Silicon Valley. But there are some interesting aspects of the Facebook IPO that did become public as well last week. First of all, Instagram, one of Facebook's recent purchases, but not its most recent, actually. The company had said, Facebook had said, that they expected that Instagram sale to close no later than the second quarter of this year. They had updated their S1 filings to say sometime in 2012 and definitely took out that second quarter information. Now, probably that's because the sale of Instagram to Facebook was so big, $1 billion, that there's some governmental regulatory stuff that has to happen, and Facebook just doesn't. They want to be conservative in their projection of when that's all supposed to kind of be filed off and approved. But it is interesting that this stuff is kind of complicated behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's very interesting. I wonder how the people over at Instagram feel about it in the sense that I'm sure some of them were wishing or hoping that it would happen a lot more quickly. And it's kind of funny, though, such a big week last week, of course, for Mark Zuckerberg. He also got...
Ooh, we got a freeze.
Oh, did I just freeze?
You froze for a second, so tell me that last sentence again.
I was just big news last week with Mark Zuckerberg as well. He also got married. He had a birthday. Pretty exciting week for him. I'm sure Instagram maybe is no longer top of mind. Who knows? But I had to laugh, Sarah. This is not in our rundown, but I went to his Facebook page, of course, and noticed that even though he's married and there's all these great pictures of him out with his wife and their wedding and the surprise wedding that they had, and it looked absolutely beautiful, he still has his dog as his cover photo. I thought that was a little weird. Someone who wants to promote the timeline as a place for families.
Yeah, well,
that's just me.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's funny. The first time, I guess, as soon as you said that he had gotten married, that's when your video froze. So maybe the people behind Facebook were like, nope, you're not going to talk about this. That was a secret. Well, it's not a secret anymore. You'd think that Mark Zuckerberg had such a busy week that maybe he wouldn't also have time to plan a surprise wedding. Such was not the case. The man can do it all.
He can do it all. It's amazing. And also, as you mentioned, not the latest acquisition as far as Instagram becoming part of Facebook, but also Facebook buying the Karma app. This is recent news, so never a dull moment over there.
Yeah, I know. I have to say, I have heard of Karma. If you go to getkarma.com, that's the website. But I went ahead and downloaded the app. It's completely free. You have to sign in through Facebook, so that's something that is going to bother a few of you. But hey, Facebook bought them, so get used to it. But the idea is that it looks like it's a variety of I guess, gifts. Like, if for some reason I thought that Amber was really going to like this tote bag, I could go ahead and say, I think she'd really like the striped one. She likes striped stuff. I'm going to go ahead and it's about $50. Here's a little information about how it was made, the company behind it. Okay, let's go ahead and add the gift. Then I, might send that to Amber. Hey, girl, that looks good. And then I select a recipient. Let's say Amber. It probably pulls you up, I assume, from Facebook contacts, yeah? And then I go ahead and, gosh, is it going to make me pay? How Karma delivers your gift. So here's what's cool about it. So it's not a virtual gift, it's a real one. What it will do then, it'll looks like it updates your wall post, or maybe if you have wall posts turned off on your profile by friends, you would get it as a private message that you then go ahead and follow this link on Karma to figure out where your gift is going to be delivered. So it's not as if I even need to ask you, like, hey, Amber, what's your address? No reason or anything. I just want to know. I can decide to gift you something via Karma, but I don't really need, like, mailing address and that sort of information. And then you go ahead and redeem it and give them your information yourself. It's pretty cool.
Fun. I think we talked about another service like this that was based in Sweden that had just come to the U.S. I cannot remember the name of it. Maybe someone in the chat room can, but that did kind of the same thing. And it seems like this is also a big category on Facebook, the concept of being able to gift something to someone and, exchange goods that aren't necessarily, like you said, just virtual goods. So, another acquisition by Facebook. So I'm sure it's going to continue to happen for quite a while, especially on the mobile front.
Yeah, I agree. Facebook is... they have quite a bit of money. Even their IPO ended up raising quite a bit more money. So they could pretty much buy any company. Well, maybe not any company. They could buy like all but probably 5 companies, at least in the tech world. So Karma is the latest acquisition. They also bought Lightbox, which was that last week? I think it was about a week ago today. But it was post the social hour from last week, so we didn't talk about it last week, which is a mobile photo display company. So there are all sorts of acquisitions where you go, that's interesting. It's a company that's already working pretty well with Facebook. I think that's sort of the key. It's an integration that makes sense anyway, because people are sharing Instagram photos via Facebook. Well, why not just buy Instagram? This is an app that helps me gift something to my friends, kind of good feelings, good mojo type of a thing, and then I can share it via Facebook. So a lot of this stuff makes sense. I wouldn't say that any of Facebook's acquisitions seem very left field to me, just that they are busy.
They are busy. Yeah, they are very, very busy. Well, okay, so we're going to move on a little bit from Facebook news, because I'm sure people have heard enough of Facebook over the past few days or weeks even, to something that Twitter just announced. I think this is a great thing as far as privacy online. They just announced last week that they will be supporting Do Not Track. That means you will have the option, and this is our social tip of the week, the option within your web browser to select Do Not Track for Twitter, and this means that you won't be able to be tracked, and Twitter won't be able to serve up recommendations as far as followers because they won't be watching your interests and other things you do as far as surfing the web within the Twitter environment. So from a privacy perspective, this is a good thing, and on the support site on Twitter, it shows you exactly how to do this within the different browsers. I guess pretty simple to do within Firefox, IE9, Safari, and a little bit more complicated within Chrome. So you have to go into get a third-party extension to do that. So worth doing if you do not want to be tracked and don't want those recommendations and Twitter kind of knowing what you're clicking on within their world.
How do you feel about this, Amber? This is the sort of thing where I see it and I say, that is awesome of Twitter to provide the option. I'm not dying to turn on Do Not Track. Maybe that's because I'm too trusting and naive, but it doesn't seem like something that I necessarily need. But how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, as far as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but really what it's tracking within the Twitter environment. What I mean there is tracking maybe what you're clicking on out of Twitter, people that you're following, to kind of customize recommendations within the Twitter environment. So for me, so much of what I do and share is public on Twitter, and Twitter is such a public platform to start out with. I was just at an event recently, and someone was talking about how you could have a private experience on Twitter, and the reality is no one really does that. So I think it's the one social network where I don't know if a lot of people are going to care as much about this feature, but I think it's a good step for them to offer it up. So that's my stance on it. I'm probably not going to turn it on either, because like I said, I'm pretty public with how I use Twitter. Right. Now, if you get into the Facebook environment or other services, then I think it's a little bit different. I don't see Google turning on like Do Not Track me within my Gmail account. I don't think they'll be doing that anytime soon, as much as people may like it.
They sadly need to track us, because then how will they advertise to us so well?
Exactly.
So well, good on Twitter for supporting Do Not Track. Again, we'll have the link to exactly how you can toggle that on and off a variety of ways in our show notes as well. Let's move on to our spotlight. I'm going to try to pronounce this. Is it Terefic? Just with
Terefic?
Terefic.
I think so.
Terefic. Terrific.
I would say so. Terrific. This is a neat service that I stumbled across on Mashable, and I'm sure people have run into this before. You finish up a project, or you finished working with a client, and you wish at that moment you had asked that client for a recommendation, or if you're a full-time employee somewhere, you wish that you asked your boss for a recommendation based on some of the work that you had done. Well, Terefic makes this really easy to do. So all you do is like managing all of your references in one place, and it makes it really simple for the person that you're asking the reference for to go in and help you out and write their answers. It's all confidential. It's all kept within that one system, and then you're able to share those references, your strongest references with recruiters. And I think this is helpful, as they mentioned in this little video, when, for example, you have to provide references and then the recruiter, whoever the HR manager, is trying to call people and track them down and they can never get in touch. This is just a way to kind of streamline that process before you're actually out there looking for a job.
Yeah, that's actually something that I feel like it comes up sort of often, because and this, it sort of reminds me of tracking down old landlords too. It's like references in general. I mean, people move around a lot. You don't necessarily have their most recent phone number or address, and you don't want to seem like you're unorganized. But honestly, these are people who might be really good job references, but might not necessarily be people that you're talking to so often that you actually know what their current information is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, they really hit things home when they talk about that phone call. I've often put my name down, or allowed people to put my name down as a reference for them. And then someone will call me and say, hey, can you provide a reference for this person? And I'm slow to get to my voicemails because it's everybody in the social hour knows Sarah and I hate voicemail. It's very ineffective, except if you're calling the show, of course. And this just helps to make this process a little bit better and tighten it up. Now, Sarah, they do this kind of on LinkedIn already, right? With recommendations. You can do this in a simple way. But Terefic is just a new spin on this. Maybe LinkedIn will buy them like everybody else is buying everything. Who knows?
Yeah, in fact, Mo Jam in chat says, is LinkedIn not adequate? Obviously talking about the features of Terefic. It sounds like it's just another option. Some people, much like Facebook, there are some LinkedIn haters out there. I'm not one of them. LinkedIn, I think, is a very good tool for me for certain things. And I certainly have recommendations that people have written for me on LinkedIn, which I hold very dear because they're people that I admire that, I'm very happy wrote me recommendations. But it's always nice to have different options. And you don't want LinkedIn to be the only place that you would have, a good paragraph from a former employer.
Yeah, and let's remember that even though you may be on LinkedIn, the reality is your former boss or project manager, they may not be on LinkedIn. I mean, that happens all the time. And the way LinkedIn works, both people need to be using the service, as far as I understand it, to be able to provide that recommendation. So I think this is something where, no one needs to be part of any service. It just makes it really simple for anyone and not tied to one social network specifically.
Very, very good. That's Terefic. Terefic. It's not spelled like it sounds, but we'll have that link in the show notes as well. Moving on got a viewer email from Den Ryle, who is responding to our conversation last week about Facebook personal profiles being able to pay a little bit of money and get newsfeed placement, and Amber and my hesitation with getting money involved in what our news feeds look like. Dunrail says, one element I didn't hear the two of you explicitly mention was the monetary aspect. The sacred space on the right of a Facebook page for ads fails once you get into mobile platforms. But monetizing in the main news feed, Facebook can begin to address one of the largest gaps in their revenue plan moving forward. That's not to say I agree with the concept, and I think it will cheapen the value longer term. Personally, I know my eyes slide right over the Google-sponsored ad on a search and down to the non-sponsored ones. I think that is a very good point, and it's true. I don't really notice ads on Facebook. I'm very good at not seeing the Google ads that you mentioned. That said, I don't want my newsfeed to become a what's promoted, what got paid for, what didn't type of a game. I think that they'll make money off of it, and I think that people will take advantage of it for sure. But yeah, I mean, it is about money. They wouldn't do this for no reason. That's why you got to pay. It changes the organic nature of Facebook, as organic as it even is now. And that, I guess I'm a curmudgeon and I don't want things to change.
I think I'm the same way. I think I went off on a bit of a rant last week and talked about that space on Facebook, that real estate really being this sacred space that, it's the one place that Facebook didn't really mess with as far as allowing advertisements. So, I don't know. I think I'm still, I still have the same stance on the issue, which is not a huge fan of them doing this. But like Sarah just said, I think people will take advantage of it, and it could get to be a little much. I think people could get a little annoyed with it. So I won't be one of the first to try it out. Let me just tell you.
I'd also like to know if you were to pay, let's say, I mean, I'm making up an amount because we don't have this functionality yet to play with it. But if I pay $10 to get a post that is going to hover, right at the top of Amber's newsfeed, and Amber chooses to hide stories from me or to see less of the sort of stuff I share, which is an option because you can control how your newsfeed looks and feels if you have people who post a lot. Do her settings override my money? All that stuff is yet to be determined, and that would be weird. It would be weird if you could pay enough to stay annoying. Yeah. The sort of thing I can't get rid of. Because again, it's money, and you wouldn't pay if it didn't provide results. So questions that have yet to be answered, I guess.
Questions that have yet to be answered. I don't know. I mean, all this Facebook talk, Sarah, makes me dislike Facebook, and I hate that because there are parts of it that I absolutely love, but just been too much Facebook lately.
Yes, I
feel
agree.
like, it's like eating itself alive kind of, but nonetheless, they may prevail. We'll see.
All right, let's move on to the Tumbler of the Week. Have we ever had a Tumbler of the Week?
Nope. I keep changing this section and making things up, Sarah. This is a really fun one for anyone who's a fan of Law & Order. I don't watch the show all the time, but of course familiar with it because it has been such a success. So someone has created a blog for people who love Law & Order and love food. So it's called Law & Order and Food. You have the right to remain delicious. And that's what really got my attention.
So wait a second. All right, I don't want to miss the point of this wonderful Tumblr account, but it is still shots of people eating on the show Law & Order.
That's it, Sarah. That's all it is.
See, I love Tumblr. They really know how to target me correctly. Yes. I love food. I love mystery dramas. I love the music on Law & Order. What's not to like here?
And if you think it's just a few pictures, you are wrong because you can keep going back and back and back. And you'll see that someone has spent an enormous amount of time watching Law & Order and getting these screen grabs of people eating food. Now, generally speaking, the food that they're eating is pretty unhealthy. Lots of pizza, ice cream, snacks. Yeah, street food. They're obviously very busy fighting crime. But you have the right to remain delicious. I couldn't stop from mentioning this in the show because I thought it was very clever and definitely a fun Tumblr account.
It's funny. You know how Law & Order has the diehard Law & Order fans who they never miss an episode and they watch all the reruns. And I would say I'm a once in a while Law & Order person. Maybe if I'm in a hotel room and I'm like, oh, good, Law & Order starting. I'll kill an hour with this type of a thing. But I don't watch
Kill an hour, Sarah?
Oh, I'm so punny today. But I'm not familiar enough with the show to know if, food is that big a deal. I mean, is it hard to find these moments where people are eating, or do people just eat on Law & Order all the time? See, I need to know more now. My interest has been piqued by this Tumblr account, laworderfoodtumblr.com, with dashes in between them. That's great. That's funny. Okay. All right, Amber. Rad or Fad is coming up in just a moment. We want to remind you, though, that we do love getting feedback from you. We try to put as much of your feedback into the show as possible, and you have a variety of ways that you can get a hold of us. You can write us at thesocialhour@twit.tv. You can leave us a voicemail. Amber and I don't like voicemail from the tax man, but we do like it from you. Our Google Voice number is 2626-SOCIAL. That's 2626-SOCIAL. You can also record a video. If you're feeling brave, upload it, send it to us. It can be a question, a comment, a little tip, a how-to, I don't know. I mean, you can get creative as long as you keep it to about 30 seconds or less. And we have in the past, in fact, it's on the screen right now, we had told people that you can also hashtag Social Hour on a tweet, send it to us, and we'll try to find those. But I actually think, Amber, because I went to pound Social Hour, and people use that hashtag for so many other things. I'm just not sure that we can claim it for our own. It's probably better if you either @reply Amber or me. That's Amber Mac or @Sarah Lane or both of us. It's probably the best way to make sure that we see your tweet, because Social Hour people are using for drink get-togethers and all sorts of stuff that doesn't really apply to our show. And I don't know if they want their tweets to be read on the show, especially if they're not watching. So yeah, it's probably better just to @reply us. But if you want to use the hashtag, that's cool too. We'll keep looking. And quickly, want to thank Audible. They're our second sponsor of this episode of The Social Hour. So, Amber, before the show, I was mentioning to you that I'm planning a little vacation at the end of June, and I've been researching the south of France, an area that I'm not that familiar with. I've only been there once, a really long time ago. And I want to absorb as much information about the area as I can before I go, because that's part of the fun of traveling. So a friend of mine who spent a semester abroad in France said, oh, you've got to read the book A Year in Provence. Have you read it yet? And I said, no, I haven't. Is it good? And she said, oh, it's great. It's really going to give you an idea of the area and the food and the lifestyle and all that good stuff. So here's my problem. I don't have time to read a book. I just don't. I could lie and pretend that I had time, but I just simply don't have time. But what I do have time to do is listen to a book during my daily commute back and forth from TWiT, where I have 45 minutes each way to sit and think alone with my thoughts or listening to someone else's. That's why Audible is so great. If you're a busy person and you want to be reading books, whether they're novels, whether they're nonfiction, it doesn't all have to be fictional stuff. In fact, Audible has over 100,000 titles, so they have pretty much everything. I can have an audiobook experience where the book is read to me. Now, depending on the book, it might be read by the author or someone else or even a variety of voices. There's a lot of different ways that audiobooks get put out, which keeps things really interesting. And I'll tell you, it is so nice to have somebody read you a book, because whether you're busy or your eyes are tired at the end of the day, when you finally have an hour to yourself, or anything in between, or you're at the gym all the time, or you take a nice long walk, or you're stuck in your car like me, Audible is great for that. If you can't read on a regular basis, you don't want to just give up, right? And Audible is amazing. It also does something with your imagination, where if someone's reading you a book, somehow it's like you have more time to, I think, let your imagination run wild because you're not actually sitting there reading the book. Works that way for me anyway. So Audible is amazing. I am going to listen to A Year in Provence because I've got, 25 days or so until I take a little bit of a break. Plenty of time to get through the book. And then I'm going to be a South of France expert. I'm going to know all the cool stuff, all the hip places to go, hopefully. I don't know, I haven't started the book yet, but I did get a note that it was a very good book. So here's the deal. I could get A Year in Provence, a book by Peter Mayle, very, very popular book, in fact, narrated by him as well, for free if I signed up for Audible. Now, how am I going to do that? Well, if you go to audiblepodcast.com/social hour, so audiblepodcast.com, all one word, /social hour, you get an audiobook for free. That is our offer. So you can try it out. Get your audiobook for free. Let's all listen to A Year in Provence together, and then we can talk about how great France is, or something like that. So that's the deal. You totally want to take advantage of this, and then you get a sense of, are audiobooks for me? And if they are, then you have, again, over 100,000 other books that you can listen to. You're pretty much set for life. audiblepodcast.com/the social hour, and we thank them so much for sponsoring this episode of our little show. All right, Amber, I'm excited for this Rad or Fad because I like things that have to do with pets, and I think this one does.
It's really strange, Sarah. Okay, so I'm trying to keep an open mind about this one. However, it's a tough one for me. I'm not going to lie. So basically, there is a church in England that has now taken to Twitter to bless their patrons' pets. So the idea being that pets are not allowed to come to the church. Okay, so they've allowed one day where pets can come. In the meantime, you are able to get your pets to send a message to the Reverend Claire Isherwood, I believe is the name. And then in turn, you'll be able to get your pet blessed. And people within the wider community at the church will be aware of this. Now, they only allow you to do this right now, and they're asking that people bring animals no larger than dogs. But according to this article in Mashable, it says that the church is hoping that zoos will get in touch over Twitter so that Reverend knows more about their exotic animals and can help them as well.
That's really cute. My mom belongs to a church where there's a pet day where pets they're brought in physically to the church to be blessed. But when they say pets, it's like, for the most part, that's dogs, because cats are not so portable. And if you've got a pet turtle, you're probably not going to come in with the whole aquarium, that type of a thing. So I like the idea of this virtual blessing if it's important to you. But either it's not physical pet day at the church, or for whatever reason it's difficult for you to have your pet blessed in person. It's a Twitter blessing. Why not?
Oh, there's got to be a name we can make up for that, Sarah. A Twitter blessing for your pet. Someone in the chat room, think fast.
a twessing, a blitter.
Oh, I don't know. It's a
really
lot.
bad.
It's a lot to think about. I feel like life is complicated enough. That's just a whole added level of something I would never think of in a million years. However, I'm sure there are other people out there who think it's awesome. Is this rad or is it a fad? I don't know if it's a fad. I usually with fads, I think that you see a lot of people doing it and it tends to kind of go away. I don't know. I don't know what to say, Sarah. See, I don't have pets and I don't go to church, so I'm not the right person to ask.
I have pets. I also do not go to church. And I know for a fact my pets do not want to go anywhere near a church because they don't like leaving the house. So I think that were I to want my kitties blessed, then Twitter would be the right way to do it.
The right way. I guess so. Okay, so I guess it's kind of rad then.
Yeah, why not? Hey, if you're into it now, you're probably into it. I wouldn't want to say that my blessed cats would be a fad of any kind because they're just rad all around. So yeah, I'm going to say rad. Sure. So
it's a lot to swallow.
Amber and I obviously
all right.
the real experts on religion.
Yes, clearly. We will have to follow this one up to see if they continue to do it because that's a lot of extra work, right? To manage all this Twitter feed. And I'm sure lots of people are writing in about their pets from all around the world, not just in that specific community. So we'll see how long they continue to do this. They might need help. They might need a social media intern, Sarah.
Maybe so. We'll stay on the case and let you know how the Church of England is faring with the overload of Twitter blessed requests, pet blessings.
Pet blessed requests. That's good.
Yeah, see? All right. But for now, we're going to say adieu. We're at the end of our hour of the Social Hour. It's been really fun. We've talked about all sorts of stuff, and we didn't talk about Facebook that much. So hopefully, if you're sick of Facebook as well, you'll thank us for keeping it a nice, well-rounded conversation. Remember that we are live on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Please do join us live if you can, but don't worry if you can't. You can subscribe to the show. Our website, twit.tv/TSH, has all of our subscription links, free of course, always free. You can find our show on iTunes. You can watch our show right from the website. However you want to do it is cool with us. Until next time, I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.